Continuing my conversation with Prakriti Chopra, it's been fun getting to know about her journey to Ashoka and then at Ashoka University, pursuing political science and international relations. Now she's headed to Oxford University for a grad school program in development studies. And I think it's for many people in our audience, it could be a very vague area. It might be interest, but not sure what it entails. So, welcome, Prakriti. Why don't you introduce yourself and explain what led you to choosing development studies?
Right. So I think I have tried to explain what I study to a number of relatives with varying degrees of success. So I think this is going to be a more receptive audience. So I think I'm going to give it my best. Right. So international relations has become a very sought after discipline of study, but it's a lot broader in scope than we give it credit for. And obviously, what international relations does is sort of shine a spotlight on connections across the world, right? But, for me, the issues that I was interested in and wanted to write about always happened south of the equator. And, whether I was focusing on, violence and sustainable living in certain villages in Africa, or if I was looking at the northeast, or everything was below the equator. And I think, okay, you can't, this was missing a classification, right? Because our classification is developed countries and developing countries, but there's a lot that the word developing actually entails, and it comes with its own lens that it needs to be analyzed with. And I think that's something that developing development studies does, is it shines a spotlight on the particular policy challenges and issues that are experienced by countries in the global south, and sort of takes a minute, steps back and thinks, okay, are the concepts and theories that we're actually using to study developing countries coming from within them? Are they actually truly capturing what is happening to the various kinds of people living there? Questioning those and then sort of taking that forward with that thought in mind. And that's actually what made me shift from applying for a degree in international relations to applying for a degree in development studies. And it's a lot more practical. There's so many skills that it actually teaches you to translate it into whether public policy or action-based projects that you can then take forward. So
it's really fascinating that you bring this up because I've been reading some Naomi Klein books and also obviously they're pretty heavy and very opinionated as well about how the Chicago Boys or Milton Friedman did so much wrong to the world, especially in Latin America and a few other countries. So yeah, it really is interesting that you kind of picked on this topic. So let's understand what the path is. How does one know that you're ready for a grad school program, and what does it take to apply to universities? What was your journey like in choosing programs and then finally applying?
right. When I started thinking about applying to graduate school, the only thought in my head was, listen, you need to make your CV as full as possible and as varied as possible, because you want to apply to competitive places, and that's all they're going to see other than whatever you're writing, right? But I think that was the wrong approach. That I took, because I signed up for the ASB program at Ashoka, got accepted to write a thesis, only to then realize that I was very mentally saturated and wanted to breathe. And I think actually taking that breath and not doing a fourth year allowed me to truly focus on presenting the best version of myself to grad school, even though that didn't include a thesis or all of that fluff that you add in CVs. And I think that's something that really helped me. It also gave me the time to think about what I truly want to study, where I truly want to study it, and then prioritize what in a program is most important to me. And one more thing I would advise is, a lot of people tend to just for grad school apply to a bunch of places. But if you've got if you know what you want, like I only applied to three. I maybe wouldn't recommend that. I would suggest putting like an upper limit to the number of places you apply to, because it is a difficult process and it's quite taxing mentally. I mean, it was for me. So I think focus and like actually breathing so that you can have that focus was really important.
So when you looked up the program at Oxford and also the application requirements, what was it that it entailed, and how did you sort of prioritize telling your story in a certain way for the program that you chose?
Right. So something I realized when I looked up graduate programs in Europe was the amount that they stressed on sort of tying your personal story to your academic interests and sort of presenting yourself through the lens of your academic journey and where you want to go in life and the values associated with it. So it was then that I realized that, if they're asking for an SOP and then asking for a writing sample, there can't be dissonance between the two. There has to be a smooth transition from one to the other and vice versa, because that's all you have, right? An SOP in most places, and in some places, a writing sample. So it has to be really comprehensive and tight. But I think the actual writing and how you present yourself in your SOP is extremely, extremely important. And I would recommend sort of, letters of recommendation are also important, right? So Oxford requires three rather than the usual two. So, I would recommend getting those in order much before the application deadline, because professors might take time. Yeah, I think that's what I did to prepare.
However, the once you put in your application, some schools also have the interview process. Was that something you experienced at Oxford or anywhere else, or was it just?
No, no. They mentioned that they would just evaluate me on the basis of my application, which two out of three universities considered only my SOP and letters of recommendation, and obviously information about my academics and so on. Oxford was the only one that actually required writing samples. And I think that really sort of sets you apart, because they're looking for people who can actually add value to the kind of research that they produce as a university. And they want to know that you know your place within that research and you know where you want to go from there, which is something that I made sure came across in my SOP and my writing samples.
Great. So I think it'll be fun to do a follow up in a year from now when you have the experience of working in an environment in a very different academic setting. So love to follow your journey then, and so long.
Definitely.
All the best.
Thank you.